Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Shonna Waters about uncertainty, resilience, and employee well-being. Shonna Waters, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you, John. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we've been preparing for this for a while, and it's fun to finally get a chance to connect. And it was a lot of fun as I, was just looking into your background, looking over your bio and LinkedIn and everything, and just getting a better sense of your professional trajectory. And we have a lot of overlap. We're both PhDs. My PhD's in sociology of work. You're a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. We both do a lot of work in this HR, people development, kind of coaching space. And anyways, I always find it fun when I find people who are doing similar types of things with similar but slightly different backgrounds. So anyways, I think
definitely.
That's great. As we get started, before we launch into our conversation, I just wanted to share Shonna's bio with everybody. So Better Up VP of Behavioral Science, Shonna Waters, is a PhD and associate certified coach who has worked with leaders and as a consultant and coach for over 20 years. Shonna helps individuals, teams, organizations, and systems realize their full potential. Shonna draws on an extensive knowledge base in project management, personnel selection and assessment, organizational assessment and development, change management, and strategic human resources to build sustainable and effective organizations. Shonna has a PhD in industrial organizational psychology and statistics, was certified as a leadership coach at Georgetown University's Institute for Transformational Leadership, and became an associate certified coach through the International Coach Federation. Again, awesome. Pretty much everything that you do and are interested in are the exact same kinds of things that I'm involved in and that I'm super interested in. So I think we'll have a great conversation. And today we're going to be focusing on uncertain times and how that translates to employee well-being in the workplace and how we can foster greater resilience within our people, but also within our leadership teams within organizations. As we get started today, is there anything else you would like to share by way of personal background or context for listeners? And then we'll launch in.
Yeah, well, John, you did the awesome, complete and always slightly embarrassing coverage of my professional career. So thank you for that. I guess what I'll add there is just, on the personal side of things, I'm also a mom of 3 girls ranging in age from 8 months. So yes, that's a COVID baby in February. All the way to my oldest will be 11 next year. And so virtual schooling and all the things associated with that. And I am, born, raised, and currently living in the Washington, D.C. area during election season. So hopefully I will, share research and evidence and what Better Up does in resilience and well-being, but also you'll see how this pursuit is really just healing thyself in all this. So.
Well, that's great. And I love the DC area. I've been back for work probably a dozen times, and I always love going back to visit. But I can imagine right now, probably tensions are high, given, we're what, 3-4 days before the presidential election.
Yes.
And
yes, we are.
So you have the coronavirus and all the issues around that. You have all of the social and political unrest in the country, all of this layered, one on top of the other, and it does make for interesting times. And I can completely relate, to the parenting and working from home thing. My wife and I have 6 children, and they're doing online school, and my wife and I are working from home, and we're juggling everything and trying to when things shut down in the spring, we just juggled and made it work, and we weren't sure how long it was going to be. And we didn't have enough devices for everyone, but we just kind of juggled things and had people doing stuff. For this fall, though, we realized, we just need to go buy more computers, and we need to have more stuff, more equipment, so everyone can do their thing. And it's been working a little bit better, but it's fun, it's challenging, and I think we're everyone's kind of had their world turned upside down and is facing a lot of unique circumstances right now. So that ties in actually quite well to our topic for today, as we're talking about well-being, resilience, just helping people dealing with the challenges that are in front of us at this moment, at this particular point in time. And perhaps it's as challenging or more challenging than it has been in recent history. And organizations are struggling, leaders are struggling, their people are struggling. So as we launch in, first of all, what does Better Up do? How does your work at Better Up help to address this kind of context that we're in? And then we can broaden it out a little bit more and talk about what we as leaders can do to help our people and to help ourselves practice self-care as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. This is a really interesting point in history where it's never been clearer than it is today that change and stress are happening at multiple levels. It's the macro environment, it's organizational, and it's personal. And I think what's really interesting about where we are today in history is that, it's always been the case that those things were all interconnected, but if we don't realize that now, we probably never will, as there's literally no boundaries between our work lives and our home lives. So, at Better Up, we are a mobile-based professional coaching company, and we work with some of the world's most recognizable brands, companies like Salesforce, Genentech, and Mars, to provide coaching to employees at any level. And so, what's unique about us is that we combine that with that world-class coaching with also AI technology and behavioral science, so that we can really drive outcomes like well-being and effectiveness for the whole workforce. So,
Excellent. That's great. And important work, addressing an important gap. So I think that's great. So now let's zoom out a little bit and talk a little bit more big picture about the current context, how it relates to employee well-being and resilience, and what can we start to do. I do think people have been, we're 8 months into this, right? So people have been thinking along these lines, but there's also pandemic fatigue happening, and so even people who are functioning fairly well for an extended period of time, their energy and motivation might be waning. Perhaps, as we're in the third wave of spikes of cases, communities, are dealing with health risks, even heightened health risks more so than they had before. So how do we handle this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think when, so Better Up has always studied resilience. I think it's something that's just kind of core to our mission of helping people, live with greater clarity, purpose, and passion, be their best selves, and all of that. But when COVID hit, we decided to double down on research related to resilience and how to foster it, outcomes of resilience for organizations. And one of the things we found was that mental, physical, and social well-being are really key to building individual resilience. And I think that's something that we probably all know that at some level, but when you see the numbers around it, and it's the most resilient individuals are 40% more physically active. They have better quality sleep. They have 20% more social support. And that actually bolsters productivity and well-being, even at a time where, nobody is immune. We're all affected by this. So it's not that resilient people don't hit setbacks, but they have all of these, self-care and protective practices that help them recover and bounce back even better than they were before. So I think it's one of those things where, it's really hard when you're kind of holding everything together, especially, I can't even imagine 6 kids, John, like bless you and your wife. But you have to really create that space and discipline to make sure you are getting your physical, mental, social needs met, so that you can really, weather the storm and maintain productivity.
So tell me a little bit more about the research you've been conducting around resilience. I think it was wise. Not only has it always been an important issue, it's more important than perhaps it's been in recent times. Plus, just with the nature of things and so many things going remote and so many organizations just trying to find ways to be productive and leverage this opportunity. I think going into full force this research, I think, is really important. So tell us a little bit more about that and some of the key findings from that research.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, so we had 2 different data sources that we were relying on for this research. One was, a large representative sample of workers, at all companies. So regardless of whether, they had a relationship with BetterUp or not. And the other one was looking really at people who are BetterUp users, so our member database. And this gave us a really interesting sort of multifocal lens on tens of thousands of people across industries, different parts of the world, and really help us understand, like, why does resilience matter and how do we improve it? So one of the findings I thought, was important is that resilience actually boosts the bottom line. And that is that companies with the highest growth and resilience demonstrate more than 3 times the annual revenue growth compared to those who grew the least in resilience. So I think that's important because, again, like we're still as a society coming to, really accept this notion that, these, it's not just technical skills and people can't just completely divide who they are at home from who they are at work. So, these proof points that really make that connection between what would previously be thought of as like softer skills and all of that with the bottom line. So that I think is important. The other thing we found is that resilience is a hidden source of innovation and growth. So, it probably makes sense if we stop and think that, it's hard to go above and beyond and really create new things if you're operating from a place of deficit. And that's what our data showed, was that, the people who are the most resilient workers are also the most innovative ones. They have 22% higher innovation than their peers, 19% higher cognitive flexibility, and then also higher team creativity. So I think, seeing the broad spectrum of the benefits that resilience can provide is important. But then finally,
really quick, can you talk a little bit more about that cognitive flexibility notion?
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Oh, you're right. I think that is, if there's one skill that we can all adopt that would probably make us, happier, more centered people, cognitive flexibility is it. And what that is, it's this notion that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we view it and our response to it. So, I was actually in a women's luncheon the other day where, the speaker framed this as, instead of viewing, a situation as something being done to you, it's like, wow, this is being done for me. And like, what opportunity for growth does that present? And, even things like, again, if we shift from like, wow, this 2020 is a year that has just been terrible to, wow, 2020 is teaching us some really important lessons. And what's the lesson that I can extract here? Even those little shifts and really building that mental habit and shifting our mindset towards opportunity has a huge impact on how we respond to our environment.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And I interrupted you, so continue.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, I mean, the last finding I wanted to highlight, just because, again, it's one of these things where I get excited about, the potential for impact that something like this creates is this notion that there's like a ripple effect from managers, resilient managers, to their team members. So we found that resilient managers help retain talent, but they also reduce burnout. And this is because, 52% less burnout for those leaders who are highly resilient, and they're less likely to leave the organization. And they're 57% more likely to see the purpose in their work. So why is that? How does that happen? I like a really simplistic example, because again, I told you I'm in the momming mindset right now, is, I have a new crawler. And what's the difference in how she responds when she falls if I have, a calm response or laugh it off, versus if I rush to say, oh my gosh, are you okay? Is everything okay? So the way we project and model response to challenge has a huge impact on the people around us. And so, I think that creates an opportunity for a point of leverage. If we can build the resilience, even just in our leaders, that'll trickle down into the rest of the organization.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that trickle down here in just a moment. But thank you for sharing some of those key findings, and what tremendous outcomes for organizations, right? Everything that you just mentioned, specifically aligned with what organizations are most interested in. And so I think I say that, I emphasize that, because sometimes we think talking about employee wellness, well-being, resilience, empowerment issues, we think, oh, that's nice. It's a nice to have, but it's not necessary. And in times of where we're dealing with difficult fiscal issues, and maybe we're struggling to make payroll, investment in people often is one of the first things to get cut, and we just kind of expect people to do more with less, and that's just not sustainable. And so, you're framing everything back to how it impacts performance, how it impacts the health of the organization, how it helps the bottom line. Those are some terrific statistics that you just shared. And it's a good reminder to all of us and anyone listening that this isn't just a warm, fuzzy, kind of fluffy kind of thing we're talking about. This is real people. And even if we set aside the human component of just like, let's be good to each other, let's treat each other with dignity and respect, let's value our people. it makes sense for the organization. It makes sense for the bottom line. It's going to help everybody. It's going to help the organization be more effective and productive. It's going to help them maintain their competitive advantage. It's going to help leaders find greater success, and it's going to help your people because you're investing in them, you're focusing on them, and you're valuing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it ends up being a really good news story about this, being able to see people's kids and pets in your Zoom meetings, right? Is that it's just hard to ignore the fact that, that has an impact on how focused you can be at work, and we've got to help people, adapt to that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about that trickle down effect, because we do need to create resilient cultures and environments that foster resiliency, and it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. I mean, it's not going to just emerge. Like, we need to create it, and so let's talk about how we do that and how leaders can start to model things in a way that can then translate down the line to their reports and even the frontline workers.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So there's a few things that I think are important here. One is, as I mentioned, you have to start with yourself first, and put on your own air mask, and that means that for you to lead through change and challenge, you've got to start by making sure that your own cup is full. That you're getting rest, that you're taking care of yourself in terms of nutrition, you're getting some physical activity, and you're building time for social connection. Now, those things are also then critical to create the conditions for with your people. So it's important that they see you doing those things, and also that you're, having that conversation with them and creating the space even for, social connection at a time when we're all virtual. So one of our customers, for example, Chevron, this was a big challenge for them in, how do we take this workforce that was not necessarily accustomed to working remotely, dealing with everything they're dealing in their personal lives, and keep that sense of connection across the globe, right? So what they ended up doing was, partnering with BetterUp to offer group coaching, what we call coaching circles, to 7,000 supervisors beginning in June, to again create this space to come together, network, offer peer coaching with one another, and also focus on behaviors like feedback and navigating uncertainty and things like that. So I think even if it's just a matter of creating some unstructured space in the, during your team meetings, or using the breakout, rooms function to create that time for social connection and check in with each other personally. How are you doing? And then to the extent that you can offer flexibility, things like adjustments in working hours or structure, things like that, it reinforces for people that they have to not just focus on delivering work, but also ensuring that they're at their best when they're doing so.
Yeah, excellent. I love those thoughts and tips. And you said it, focus on yourself first, make sure that you're in a good place, and then make sure you're modeling, make sure that you're doing it in a conspicuous way. I know not some leaders naturally, they like kind of being center of attention, and so that's not going to be a difficult thing. Others, they're more kind of the behind the scenes. They don't really want the limelight. They don't want to shine the light on themselves all the time. But in this instance, even if that's not your style, you need to do it, because people need to see that you're taking your vacation time. They need to see that you're doing these self-care behaviors. They need to understand that you're dealing with stuff and struggling with things just like they are, and so they can connect better, and they can see the importance of going through and doing these types of things. That just has to happen, because it's not directly related to what we were just talking about. But let's take, for example, the vacation day element, right? We know there's so much research that shows, particularly in the US, we just don't take our vacation days. So we offer way less vacation and PTO time than pretty much anywhere else in the world already. So many countries and companies provide way more opportunity for vacation than we do. But even though we have less available, people don't take it. They just don't take it. And so, and it's one thing for an organization to say, we encourage you, we're offering this as a benefit, we want you to take your vacation time. That's nice. But if I'm reporting to a boss who I see doesn't take their time, or they find little ways to ding people who do take vacation time, then of course I'm not going to be as inclined to take my vacation time. And I know we're in a pandemic. I know we can't travel. Maybe we had a destination we wanted to go, fly off to Europe and do something really cool. We can't do that right now. That doesn't mean we don't need vacation time. We still need time to reset, to allow ourselves to decompress. And leaders have to model that. If they don't, it doesn't matter what they say, people aren't going to utilize that time.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think it's one of those things where as a leader, especially a senior leader, it's really easy to get into sort of the savior mindset of like, well, I do want you guys to do it, but I can't, because, you feel such immense responsibility and there's pressure to, especially when there's chaos and crisis, to kind of just keep charging through. And in fact, there's been some research that shows that it's actually at the most senior levels of leadership right now where burnout is becoming the highest, because people aren't taking that time off and recharging. And so, I think it's twofold. Like, yes, there's always that self-preservation aspect of like, I can't serve others if I'm not in a good place myself. But I think in addition, that building those norms that you're talking about, it's critical. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell me to take vacation, if I don't actually deep down believe that that is okay and encouraged and what you want me to do, I'm not going to do it. So, I mean, even I think little things like being aware of, what time am I sending emails? What time am I responding to Slack messages? Am I sharing back to the group when I did take time off, even if it was a staycation, and talk about that in a way. So not seeing it as being out in the limelight or being up front, but like, how can I be in service and empower, the behaviors I'm hoping to see in self-care in others through, being vulnerable and sharing that myself.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Shonna, it has been a real pleasure. The time has flown by and we're just about out of time. But before we stop today, I wanted to make sure I gave you a chance to share with listeners a little bit more about how they can get connected with you, and give us the last word on this, the importance of resilience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, Shonna Waters. You can reach me at BetterUp, Shonna.Waters@betterup.co. Always happy to answer questions, engage in any of this. I think what I want to leave you with is this concept that, coaching and self-care, these are things that are like a mental fitness gym. You can build and practice coping skills and resilience to meet unexpected challenges and stressors on the job and in life before you actually need them. I think if we thought of our mental health and well-being as something that required investment, just like our diet and our physical activity and our technical skills, I think we'd all be happier, more productive people. So I also just want to say, best wishes to everyone out there. Good luck with managing the current environment, and go out and vote.
Thank you. Yes, go out and vote if you haven't yet. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking with you. Such an important topic, and I hope listeners will reach out, get connected, find out more about what BetterUp can do for you, what Shonna can help with. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope everyone has a great week.
The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.